Hey, YouTube, Brian LCS, and welcome to the Comic Book Community 411. And my special guest today is Mr. Gary B., the Casual Comic Guy. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brian. I certainly appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, great to talk with you. I know you've been doing multiple interview shows now for quite some time in the hot seat and the 1011. So it's good to I think for me to see you on the other side, so I can kind of pick your brain for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think I've been on the other side for about a year and a half, so this is odd for me right now. I'm not the one who gets interviewed, right?
So before we jump into the questions, why don't you tell for those who don't know you, tell everybody a little bit about you and your channel.
All right. Well, I'm just a 50-plus-year-old man who is talking comic books and found something on YouTube that I didn't expect, right? When I started out my channel, it was because YouTube is what our kids grow up on. We grew up on cable TV. That was our big thing. For our kids, it's YouTube. So I wanted to understand YouTube a little bit more because I have a son. He's 12. At the time, he was 9, 10, and I'm like, well, I better learn about this so I can police it if I need to, right? And it turned into me just like, well, I'm into comics again, and I'll make a few videos. I'll share some boxes like we all do when we first start, right? Look what I got. And absolutely horrendous videos. I can't even go back and watch them. They're so bad. But I had 5 subs when I started. I don't even know where those 5 subs came from. I don't know who found my channel because I never made any content. But 5 people were following me, and then I got a shout out from Stevie B, and then next thing you know, I had 10 people following me, and I'm like, well, there we go. I've hit 10. Can't ask for much more. And then when I hit my first 100, my mind was blown. I'm like, but basically, I just talk comic books. I like to talk movies and TV shows now and again. I do want to diversify my content a little bit. I got something coming up soon, which ought to be fun because I'm a big horror guy, a big John Carpenter guy. So I'm kind of trying to host this watch party with these three. I don't want to announce them yet in case anything happens in their schedules don't make out. But they've never seen it, so it'll be a first watch reacts party. And I'll give my commentary on it because I know that movie inside out, backwards, forwards, sideways, whatever. But this is my hobby now. And the reason I picked Gary B, the casual comic guy, is because my real life is hectic. Work is stressful, work is hectic. This is where I needed to come to calm down. And this is coming to YouTube, interviewing people, talking comics, shooting stuff about just random things, guest starring on other people's channels. All that's just fun for me. That's my mental health is YouTube. And that's what it's become for me. This is where I go when my day is stressful and I need to escape.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I
Very
mean,
long answer.
no, it's good to because like I'm not sure if I've heard that. I've watched a lot of your videos, but it's strange. I was thinking about this before we got on, is trying to think back of some of the earliest videos that I watched of yours. But there's probably even more that I haven't watched that you did, and maybe you revealed some of your origin, how you got into collecting those type of things. But it's such an animal, I think, that or like a routine that we fall into, that we watch new videos and forward, and we very rarely go back to older videos unless somebody points something out, or unless something is relevant in happening in the community today.
Well, it's tough. I try to watch as many videos as I can, but as you know, the more followers you get and the more people you get that are content creators, it's hard to watch videos. You work a full time job. You have family in the evening. And around that time and during that time, you're trying to fit in YouTube videos. You're trying to go to channels and support people, and you're trying to make your own content. And it can be quite daunting. For as satisfying as it is, it can also be very stressful.
Yeah, no, I've certainly found as you're just juggling it, right? Because you're finding new channels or you're discovering new channels. But now, like you said, as your channel grows, you know you have comments to reply to, and so yeah, it's fun, but it can become it become can become a little bit like work
Right.
if you let it. So
But fun work.
yes. All right, so let's jump into the first question,
Sure.
and it's the same for everybody, similar to your show. So, and I want to thank you too, because one of the main reasons why I started this show was because of your hot seat show, and even the 1011 and Jimmy Small Town Collectibles his interview show. I really find that most of comic book content is people showing, like you said, showing books, opening up a mystery box, and so there's a visual piece to it because you want to see the cover, you want to see the video. But what I find with the interview shows, and why I really enjoyed what you do with your shows, is that it's something you can just listen to. You don't need to be, you don't have to be staring at the screen for a half hour, 45 minutes when somebody's talking because like I said, we're not showing books or anything. We're just having a conversation.
Right. It's
So,
basically a podcast.
right. And so that's what I'll catch replays of the interview shows when I'm doing stuff around the house. I'll throw it on my phone or my iPad and be able to listen to it and not have to be looking at the screen because I want to see the cool cover that somebody's showing or the slab. So, but like I said, I wanted to thank you because you were one of the inspirations for me to start this show with the hot seat. So
Oh well, thanks. I'm surprised I'm still doing the hot seat. I never expect anything I did on YouTube to take off, and it's not like I'm super popular or a big channel. I'm small potatoes, but I have people that tune in every week, which I'm super thankful for. And there's always been people that are willing to come on and spend time, an hour, hour and a half of their night on the show being a guest, which is still really mind blowing to me that people like I'll reach out to somebody and they want to come on and they're excited to come on. And I just find it's another part of the community thing for me, right? I can give lots of shout outs and some people will go sub you. Half of those people will unsub you the next day if there's a contest involved, right? But if I interview you or I have you on a show like the 1011 and you're showing books and you're telling why it's your favorite and you're making it personal, people who follow you from that are more likely to stay with your channel. So it's another way I kind of backdoor the grow together thing. When someone's on my show and they're talking about themselves, the audience engages with them. The audience ends up connecting with them. And I'm not talking about the audience in the chat. Those are people that, for the most part, already know the guests that I have on, and they're there to support them. They're already dialed in, right? But as you know, these shows get a lot of life on the rewatch through random people that find them, and it's those 3, 5, 8, 10 subs that first discovered a personality that didn't know they're out there. And sometimes my co host is discovering that person for the first time, and then they become friends with them. So it's building a community and friendships through just doing a show where someone gets to come on and share something personal about themselves that somebody else out there connects to.
yeah, no, I agree. That's one of the, like I said, that's another reason why I like the interview show, and even for me, for just personal, getting to know other community members, having a conversation one on one, I get to know that person a lot better, and I do agree. There's then that personal connection. When you know a little bit more about that person, you're more likely to go back and watch them again and again. So. But so
Absolutely.
I haven't even asked you that first question because we got we got
Oh, we did.
sidetracked. So,
Oh, we did. Okay, I'm sorry.
so my first question is always, how did you get into collecting, or who introduced you? How did you first start, with comic books?
Well, it's funny. Everybody has vivid memories, it seems, on YouTube of their very first comic. I don't. I've always been an avid reader, so books have always been something that's been in my life. So I don't have a distinct memory of my first comic. I do have memories of getting of my dad bringing home a box of comics that somebody gave them, and it had Savage Sword of Conan's, and it had the Brave and the Bold with Batman. It had Spider Man, all these different books, which was and Conan the Barbarian, of course. And it was these worlds and these adventures that opened up the comics for me because I've always loved to read. One of my standout memories I do have is Conan the Barbarian 100 because it's one of my all-time favorite Robert E. Howard stories. And I know I could probably say that about 20 of his stories, but it's the death of Belit. And now that's a tale that Roy Thomas took, this like 18, 20 page story, and he turned it into a 3.5 year arc in comics,
Oh wow.
filling in this life that Conan led with Belit. Because in that little story, it hints at their years together. And she was one of the few people that Conan was actually a little subservient to a point, but he would relent most of the time, and I found that fascinating. And the character building was amazing. So reading those comics cemented me in this world. Like this is good storytelling, right? And when you first pick up a comic and you have a writer like Roy Thomas writing it, it's pretty easy to get hooked because they're pretty good at what they do. I didn't pick something up from someone that just banged something out to get a paycheck. I picked something up from someone that took the time to adapt material that they loved in a loving way into a book. And then, of course, you just have the ones that capture your imagination. Marvel Team Up, The Brave and the Bold. Now, everyone knows I'm not a DC guy, but when I was young, I loved The Brave and the Bold. I don't know what it was. That comic was great. That and Marvel Team Up were so good. And I just loved the team up nature of it. You had your favorite heroes and how they interact with someone they don't usually interact with or someone they were teaming up with. Those captured my imagination in a different way. What we didn't have back then was horror a lot for me, right? Just something I didn't have access to. So I have a very distinct memory of 12 years old of having a garage sale. I raised some money, and I actually, with some of that money, I bought my very first Clive Barker book, which was In the Flesh.
Oh wow.
And I've been hooked on Clive Barker since I was 12. I've read him my whole life. Him and Robert E. Howard are my two favorite authors. So I've collected. I still read novels, and I'm the guy that's reading 3 4 books at the same time. So I have bookmarks in all of them. I'll go read a couple chapters of this, a chapter of that. I'm all over the place. I'm always reading more than one at a time. But that love of reading extended into comics, and comics like Conan the Barbarian by Roy Thomas extended into novels because I hadn't heard of Robert E. Howard until I read Conan the Barbarian. And then, of course, I read the Savage Sword of Conan, the magazines, which were much more adult oriented. And then my mind really took off because he had these big formats. They were bloodier. The content was a little more adult. It was a little more fierce, a little more sexy sometimes. Everything that would capture a young person's interest, it was in there, and more adult storytelling. So when you're young, you feel like you're reading on an adult level when you're reading something like that, right? Like, oh, look, I'm reading beyond my years, and you're just, it's you're young and you're dumb, but you're having fun reading, and so those are my first memories of comics. I don't have a specific when I started. Of course, as life goes, I've been in, out, in, out. I was in again in the 90s for a while. Um, I had all those expensive books, and which I sold when they weren't expensive books, like everybody else. We all have our horror stories of all these
Oh yeah.
pricey books that we used to own, which, used to own doesn't mean anything, but I remember reading them, and it was a great time for comics. They were big again. And then, of course, you move and you stop. You have new expenses. You get back in again later. And it wasn't until 2019, around 2017, I discovered Rhinos Comics. It was a new comic store in Rochester that had opened, and I dabbled on and off in the 2000s with collecting. But every comic store in Rochester that I was trying to collect from, it just really didn't have a personality. And you
Mm,
would go there and it was like, do you need help in that back issue bin? No, I'm lucky. And it was kind of like they were policing you, like they didn't trust you, and I just couldn't shop that way.
mm.
So the comic shops around at that time ruined the experience for me, and I dropped back out of books. But then, of course, Marvel's getting Conan back. Now my interest is peaked. I've been a semi-regular customer at Rhinos, trying to get my kid into reading and bringing him there. They had toys, they had comics. Ended up becoming friends with the owner and the staff. Really super nice people, really supportive people, and and as soon as Conan started again, I was back into it and haven't looked back.
That's great.
So
Yeah,
there,
I mean,
short answer, Brian.
but no, I mean, when you first mentioned you don't remember the first book, and I had a similar experience because I think my first superhero that I ever discovered was probably Batman, Adam West Batman on reruns,
Right?
and then I don't recall my first comic either. It probably was a Spider-Man book that I picked up at a convenience store, 7-Eleven. Walked in, saw the magazine rack, saw Spider-Man or Batman, and picked up a book. But I don't remember the exact book either.
Yeah.
So,
See, my first TV memory of superheroes was actually George Reeves' black and white Superman
okay,
and Wonder Woman.
oh, okay,
I mean, how could Linda Carter not capture anyone's attention, right?
yeah, yeah. Linda, I remember. Yeah, Wonder Woman, and then for me too was the Incredible Hulk.
Yep.
Lou Ferrigno.
I
Yeah,
was an avid watcher of that too.
yeah. That was a big Friday night. When I was 10, 11, whatever, however old I was at the time. So, okay. So, how did you then, and I think you kind of answered this a little bit in your intro. So, how did you make the leap to YouTube to say, all right, I'm going to start videos? And I know you mentioned that initially, you wanted to make sure because your son was watching and so you understood the platform or understood what was, happening.
Right, and that was basically it. I figured I'd be on for a month, 2 months. I'd make some videos nobody would watch. I'd get a few interactions and at least understand how content creating works. That way, if my son wanted to create content, I would be a resource for him, right? And I could tell him this is where you want to start. This is what you don't want to do. But I mean, basically everything I did at the beginning, I don't think you want to do. It was like I said, the videos are horrible. And of course, that was the time when that Spider-Man booth boxes were big and everybody was opening them. So what do? You order a few that Spider-Man booth boxes and you order them. You get the same books as everybody else, but you got something
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not me banging on their boxes. It's just there's a theme, right? And when you're buying from the big box companies, people tend to get the same stuff
Right. Right.
with one different hit here or there or whatever it may be. Um, but I didn't have any long term plans, right? And it wasn't until there was a few people here locally in Rochester. They wanted to start a channel, and they asked me to be a part of it. I said, "Sure, let's do it." It was semi regular at best, and it was five different guys' opinions, trying to do a channel. And I'm like, well, that's okay, but I want control of my own content. If I want to put something out, I want to put it out when I want to put it out. If I want there to be a certain, and that's nothing against those guys, but if I was going to do YouTube, I wanted to control my own voice.
Okay.
So that was another reason, right? I wanted to control my own voice. So that's another reason I went off on my own. And then another reason you end up sticking around is, you make friendships and it becomes fun on another level, with Jason slotted up and Jimmy. And, we just became fast friends once us three got together. And I haven't talked to Jason in a while, and I got to talk to him and love to connect with him again. Jimmy's been super busy, but the whole reason the hot seat got started was it was us three interviewing somebody. And like happens on shows, sometimes some people go away from something. That doesn't mean they go away from you. It just means there's different requirements in their life, and that's what they got to. That they do something different now, and but your YouTube family, it grows, right? So now the suspects list of people who host is big, and all of a sudden we got Rob, we got Digger Jam, we have Nick's Kicks and Comics, Chris the Comic, we Panda Awesome, Circumstances. We have a bunch of people that are in my group chats that I reach out and connect with, and a lot of these people I met through other people too. Like one of my favorite guys and channels is Anachronic Comics with Joe, right, and Matt
Oh yeah,
Woods,
yeah.
and and I learned about Joe through Slotted Up. He's like, "You ever check this guy out? He's really cool." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I checked it out. I'm like, "Oh, Joe's a nice guy. I like Joe." And but so I lost track of the question, but
It was how you got into YouTube, how you started your
right.
channel.
But I just never left. It became,
Mm.
like I said, it became my zen. It became the way I go someplace to relax. Right. When we're younger, you go out and you hang out with your friends at a bar, or you go play some sports together. Right. And I used to play a lot of softball. I used to play baseball. I used to play basketball. Used to play tennis for 20 years plus of my life. Played a lot of racquetball. But then as people get older, some people can't play anymore. They can't do this anymore. Life, and because life is life, certain things take precedence over what you used to do. And especially with things like the pandemic and things like that happening, all of a sudden there was this influx of everything on YouTube. And, that's when my channel started, was like during the beginning months of the pandemic. And it just turned into something that's really satisfying for me to do. I can come on any day of the week, and I'm talking to someone, my buddy from Austria, Thorson. I can talk to Thorson in Austria. I can talk to Lee from Australia, or Ignacio, and just all these different people from around the world that you would never have had a chance to meet in any other way except through this platform. And that's absolutely amazing. This, I always equate it on my interview shows. YouTube is the new bar, right? It's the new meeting your buddies at the
Sure.
bar. You're meeting you're meeting backstage on StreamYard, and you're having a show. You're hanging out. That's the new hangout. And when you're done, you go to your bed.
Yeah,
You're good.
yeah. Well, and I think the live stream has really kind of propelled, YouTube and, the pandemic, right? A lot of people started using Zoom, for work meetings or, Microsoft Teams or whatever platform. But, it's really become a kind of a norm in our lives to use you talking online with others, whether it's, professional or not. But I think that the live stream is like a whole different animal on YouTube where it's a hangout, right? Like you said, you're hanging out with a
Right,
panel with a group of people, but then you got the whole chat element where that sometimes the chat could be off on their own doing their own thing talking about something totally different than what's happening on the live stream, which I
right.
find
And they're
is
having a great time.
yeah, exactly.
It's like, and it reminds me of when I used to have parties when I was younger, right? So it was me, my buddy Dan, and we had a party every weekend. Sometimes we had parties twice a week. We partied a lot, but there was the party we're having, and within that party, there's a bunch of other conversations and things
Oh
going
sure.
on, right?
Yeah,
And that's how the chat is, like you were just saying. So you have your show going on and your hangout going on. Sometimes the chat has their own two or three different things going with people talking and having conversations. So, or discovering each other's channels for the first time too, which is another great thing that happens during a live show. You can, if you're watching the chat, different people go, "Oh, I never heard about your channel. I just subbed you up. I just subbed you back." But again, that's the community and the community aspect of it. Just like a party, right? You're all hanging out. Except we're old now. We don't. When we get home from work, we don't want to go anywhere else. We're
Right.
good. I want to stay home,
Exactly.
right? Well, you're home. You're still hanging out. You still have that human interaction. You're still talking about things that you care about with people that care about the same things that you do. So you're having a fun conversation. You're not sitting in a bar with some stranger talking to you and you're trying to pretend to be interested, or they're trying to pretend to be interested in what you're saying, right? You guys are actually talking to each other about something you have in common. That's the great thing about the comic community. If we get on a show together, we automatically have one thing in common, and that's comic books.
Yeah. No, that's that instant connection, right? Yeah. You already know, you have that something in common with that other person. So yeah, no, it's certainly been a, like I said, the live stream has been a totally different animal, and I still do it today. Like when I'm in a live stream, in the chat, I see a new name pop in. I'll go grab that name and search them to see, oh, do they have a channel? Is that somebody I should be, watching, and go sub them up and go check them out if they produce content. So, and I think probably my first couple hundred people that I subscribed to were just done that way in somebody's live chat, and would just see a new name and say, "Oh, let me go check them out."
Right? And you never know who your next favorite YouTuber is that you're going to connect with on a personal level.
Right.
You may not have met your best friend yet, and he might be in the chat or she might be in the chat.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. All right, so let's move on to the third question. And this is a question I think that you usually ask on the hot seat. If you could reboot a character or had creative control, over a character or a comic book, who would you tackle?
Oh, okay. So if I had creative control, there's going to be the main two answer, and there's going to be the not main two answer. All right. So the main answer is going to bring Dazzler back, right? And she had a good 42 issue run. She had a 4 issue miniseries of the Beast. She's appeared at X Books over there, but people think Dazzler and all they see is the 70s glam aspect of it. But she was actually Alison Blair was actually a really interesting character. Had to really work and struggle for what she had in her life. Was living in crummy apartments. Was just trying to make ends meet. All stuff that we've experienced and gone through. And she also had a power set that most people don't understand because when she turns up that sound, she can just put everybody in the room out. It doesn't matter your power, she can almost nullify it. And if she goes whole hog, she doesn't have Phoenix level powers, but her powers are a couple pegs below that with the
Hmm.
sound.
Interesting. Yeah. So Dazzler is, probably a character. I don't think I have never read her run, but have read her as like in a team up. So always as a secondary character in a book or story. I
Right,
never
and I
read her
think she
main
deserves to
storyline.
be a headliner. And my other character would be Solomon Kane, another Robert E.
Hmm.
Howard creation. It's either Solomon Kane or Dark Agnes. Solomon Kane is his Puritan, and he was trying to make up for leading a life that wasn't great. Um, he finally saw that he hadn't been a good man, and he needed to make amends. So he believed wholeheartedly in God, and he wanted to fight the good fight and abolish evil wherever he said it. Now, I'm not a religious person, um, so the God part of it doesn't appeal to me, right? What appeals to me is the mindset of Solomon Kane that he feels this is his God given mission and he's going to accomplish it. Wherever he runs into it, he does not turn his back to evil. He's got his he's got his pistol. He's got his staff that Anlanga gave him, his juju staff, and he's got a sword, and wherever he travels, he's trying to right wrongs, and not only right wrongs to help others, but to make up for when he wasn't as good as he could have been as a person, right? And you got supernatural elements. He kills a clan of hundreds of vampires in one story, which is an amazing story, especially how he accomplished it. But you have him fighting people like Leloup, and which goes for on for a little bit and a lot of fun. But he's a dark character. He's a character of single purpose, and he's someone who just wants to redeem himself. Uh, Really well written character that doesn't get the respect or notice that he deserves.
Mm.
And along that lines too is Dark Agnes, another Robert E. Howard creation, who probably has, if you read The Swordswoman, and there was only two and a half pieces, two and a half stories that Robert E. Howard wrote before his death. One of them was finished by someone else. But she has probably one of the most brutal origin stories you'll ever read. And you connect with this character right away. She stabs to death this gross guy she was being forced to marry from her father, who um, served in these wars, and his way of making money was selling his daughter off to someone else to get
Oh
to
wow.
marry her, regardless of how she was going to be treated or what was going to happen to her. She was given a knife by her sister to kill herself with. Instead, she killed the guy that was going to force himself on her and marry her. And then she escaped her house, ended up hooking up with this guy, not hooking up like sexually, hooking up like
Mm.
partnering up. She was kind of like a 16, 17-year old kid. He was like in his like late 20s or early 30s, and not not the most honest guy, but he had a lot to teach, and he had intended on screwing her over at first, and but she ended up training with him. They became partners, not like boyfriend, girlfriend, or
Right.
husband, wife, just comrades in arms, right?
Okay.
And she excelled at the training, and just a really, really heavy, really good story with this woman and this guy, and um, just amazing character. Again, doesn't get enough notice. Even
Yeah,
the novels never got enough. Most people have never even heard of her, know of her existence.
and I was going to say that I'm not sure if I'm familiar with her.
And what is funny is Red Sonja, as you know, Red Sonja, right, from Roy Thomas, having her in Marvel
Yes.
Comics from back in the day. That's not Robert E. Howard's Red Sonja. That's a Roy Thomas creation, which is a combination of Red Sonja of Rogatine, Robert E. Howard's story, and Dark Agnes. He combined the two characters and then placed that character in the Hyborian Age to have like a female counterpart to Conan. And that's how the Red Sonja you know was born.
Okay.
And
Good
that's
to know.
why Roy Thomas gets partial creative credit for that.
I did not know that.
Sorry, guys. You knew I was going to make it Conan at some point.
Yeah, if he doesn't come out and say Conan, he was going to find a way to to, to
So, one question I got to tackle strong Marvel women and Conan.
yes.
So, I'm good.
Very good. All right, good. All right. So we'll move on to question four. And now this is what's your biggest dislike or complaint about comic book collecting or comic book community on YouTube? What's one thing you just really don't care for?
Uh, let's see. I don't think about what I don't like very often, actually, because I just, I mean, if I'm going to do this, why focus on things I don't like?
True.
If there's something I don't like that somebody does, I just don't watch them because I don't want that negativity in what I do. I would guess it would be though. Well, let's take like the acetate gate. I ignored all that. I didn't care about it. It doesn't affect how I collect. It doesn't affect how I read. So I would guess the thing that bothers me most is how fast people want to jump on something and make a controversy of it to get attention.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way about that. I really, I kind of heard about it, saw some stuff on Instagram, but I really wasn't paying close attention to it because it really didn't interest me. And like you said, there was so much negative, people were jumping on it to whether it to be, negative towards others or to get attention themselves. So I
Right.
was like,
And
I don't,
only one person I saw did it the correct way, and that was Chip Getler, who had a very respectful, very well spoken video about his experience there. But then as soon as he got hits and got popular with it, everybody else wanted to copy that. And all of a sudden, you saw a bunch of shows about it.
oh yeah. Yeah, that ruled YouTube for like what 2 weeks or so. But yeah, no, the one thing I liked about the way Chip approached it was, well, Chip was there. Chip was in line. Chip bought one of the books,
Right.
so
And
he
Chip
had
is
firsthand
respectful.
experience. Right, right.
Yeah.
So
And I also don't like if something happens to someone that someone doesn't like in the community, it gets blown up on Instagram or YouTube. I stay away from all that. If there's something negative, I'm just not going to engage. As
yeah,
soon as I
no, I
have
agree.
to, if I have to focus on negativity on my channel, then I wouldn't have a channel because it's not what I'm about. It's not what I enjoy. It's not what I'm here for. So, as far as the collecting aspect, just how much prices have gone up based on speculation since COVID, right? Books you could buy before, they're now out of range, and just books that you want because you don't care about the value, you want to read them, right? Or it's just a character you love, and now you'll never get that book because now a book that was $10 is now $1,200, right? So I would guess the skyrocketing prices of books that shouldn't hold the value they have and actually take it out of the reader's hands. And that's not me hating on the spec community. I understand if you sell comics, you sell comics. You got to make your money. Um, it's just not an aspect of it I enjoy.
I agree. I agree. And I think all of us are, people say, oh, flippers, dirty flippers, and, speculators. But I think if you're collecting comics or collecting really anything, at some point, you're probably going to sell some stuff to that maybe you lost interest in to then buy stuff that you'd like to, that you're more interested in. Or so we all, whether you want to call yourself, whatever you want to label it, we all sell or move books around. I had a bunch of books just recently, like 3 long boxes of books that they were really something that I didn't collect, and I sold them so that I had a little extra money
Right.
for an upcoming con,
Well,
so that
and
I could
that's the thing
buy
too.
more books.
There's different aspects to collecting. Collecting isn't one thing. I collect because I'm a reader. Other people collect because they're resellers.
Right,
If you're mad at resellers, then why aren't you mad at your LCS? They're selling comics.
right,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I can understand people being frustrated if someone that has deep pockets goes and buys everything off a shelf because it happens at your LCS, right? You go in for a book, and if you don't have it on your pull list and guaranteed to be there for you, some dude will walk in there and buy all 20 copies off the shelf, and you don't get one.
yeah,
But with anything that you collect, that's going to be an aspect of it. And it just is what it is. I've never said dirty reseller unless I'm picking on a buddy for selling something because I'm going to pick on them, just busting balls and stuff. But that's if that's their business, that's their business. Why aren't you mad at people selling mystery boxes then?
yeah. That's
You know,
true.
and if I'm going to be mad because someone's reselling books, then why am I not mad at my LCS? He's selling me books every week, that bastard.
Yeah, he's making money. Yeah, he's making a profit.
Right. And and it's funny because in being someone that helps out my LCS a lot, I see a lot of behind the scenes on it too, right? You see when someone gets a collection in, they probably pay less than a third what that collection's worth. And people are like, oh, I'm getting robbed. Like, well, you don't understand though. Don't if you're looking to make a profit off what you're selling personally, don't sell it to a comic shop.
Oh, sure.
Comic shop can only pay that because they have to pay people to process those books. They have to pay people to bag and board them. They have to pay for the bag and boards. They have to pay to restock them. They have to pay hours for people to do that work and to look up the prices on them. And there's a lot that goes into getting a book back on the shelf after it's bought.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen it firsthand at my LCS. I've come in and they're going. A couple of the staff are going through a collection that they just bought. You know, 4, 5, 6 long boxes, and they're going through. Are there any keys? Do we have to bag and board these? We have to sort them. It's
Right.
time consuming.
Well, just the key thing alone, because you got, you're in a back room with your phone open and apps looking for key comics so you can label that comic correctly. And then you're using 2, 3 different websites to determine value.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of work, and I've purchased a few small collections, 5, 6 long boxes, and it's time consuming to go through if they're not organized, and if it's a certain series or characters that you may not be familiar with, then like you said, there's the research aspect of it to try to determine, value. So yeah, it
Right. You
is.
can have a couple hours into just looking at one box of books.
Oh sure.
And that's
Yeah.
something you're having to pay someone to do. Because people understand if you're a comic shop owner, you don't have time to do that yourself. You'd never be open. You would never
Right.
handle any customer. You would never have any reactions with any customer because all you would be is in the back of your comic shop or at home 24/7 pricing books, rebagging books, boarding books, processing orders, and it's a non-stop thing.
Yeah, no, I usually, will go to into my LCS on a, Wednesday afternoon after work. And there's days that I've gone in there and they're still at 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, still processing pull list books for customers.
Right.
So yeah, and
Which is its
they're
own
open,
nightmare.
they open at 10 a.m., and they're probably in earlier than that on a new comic book day.
And now, right. And now after the pandemic, you have all these other things that are thrown in that, right? Like when books don't, like your comic shop might get all your books. My comic shop might get all the books. Another comic shop might not get their Marvels that week, or they might not get their DCs, or they might not get their Indies. So you did all the pull lists, but now you have this list of 15 people that didn't get this book because it didn't ship. This list of 20 people that didn't get this book. That's a whole another subset of things you got to keep track of.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a good um, reminder for people that it's not just cash register ringing all day long. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So all right, so let's move on to your. So we finished the 4 questions that I ask everybody. So now we'll move into 2 random questions. One that I'll come up with, and one that we'll just pull from a list. So my random question for you, Gary, is, most people know you as the originator of the Grow Together movement, the grandfather, if you would. So how did that come about? Where did that idea come from?
In the simplest of ways, with no idea that it would take off. I was gonna run, and well, I don't know. I think it was maybe I'm having trouble. I think it was my 200 subscriber giveaway or something, and I wanted to do something that would help out other channels, right? Because it's part of what my channel's about. So I go, all right. And I was just learning about hashtags, and people leave hashtags and things, right? And I'm like, all right, well, what hashtag? I need to make up a hashtag for this contest. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to have them do other channels and other channels support other channels, they're going to be growing together. Hashtag grow together. Never thought it would go past the one video I made. Here I am, this little 200 sub nobody. Just create this hashtag one off for this one video, and I made it. and now it's years later. There's people using it that probably have no idea I even exist, and that's the thing. It took on a life of its own, right? And I remember the first person to do it was Nick's Kicks and Comics. He's like, "Hey, I really like what you did, man. Can I make a video using it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care. I'm like, have at it." And he made the very first follow up Grow Together video, Nick's Kicks and Comics.
Okay.
So he's one of the ones that actually helped kick that off, right? And then it just kept growing from there. And then hashtag Grow Together videos started popping up. But for me, it was simple. I just wanted to come up with a hashtag for a contest that I could put in and do a John, and in the process get some channels that I thought needed attention, some attention. Not that, and trust me, I've never thought I was the channel that's going to get people over their marks. I'm a small channel. I'm not a big channel. From 200 to what I am now, I'm still a small channel. But my mindset about it has always been, if I just get at least each person that I list one new sub that really sticks with them and enjoys their content, then I've done two people a favor.
All right.
Everybody else may drop off after the contest is run, but someone that goes over there is actually going to connect with that content and stay and connect with that creator. You never know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm trying to remember when I first discovered that the Grow Together on your channel. Um, I just remember being like, wow, and I think it's sub numbers. You're over 1,000, but you may have a channel that's at 500, and so by shouting them out, that may help them increase their numbers just a little bit. And so I think that's why it works so well. It's kind of the you know if I do a shout out for somebody and they, like you said, they get one or two subs that stick, well, then it's accomplished.
Right.
What it was about. So, but I remember it. I remember. I think you did a shout out for me very early on when I started my channel. Rob the Rican, used to do and I still think he does a Saturday or Sunday show where
Yep.
he would
You
do
shouted
shout
me
outs.
out.
So, um, I caught on to that very early, from others, you being one of them. And just like, that's why I try to shout out channels on my weekly show as well, because, we all can help each other, grow together. So,
Right, and I got my first, like I said, I got my first shout out from Stevie B, and that's where I started learning it. And then, of course, you learn about Roger Metarog and all the great
oh, yeah.
work he does for the community. And then, of course, Rod the Rican, right? And then one snowballs into another, and you got these great people who are setting the example. And, and if it's something you connect with, you follow in their footsteps.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. And that's why I can see where now it's grown, like you said, into a life of its own where, people may not even know that it initiated on your channel. So it's really,
Well, that, and it's like thousands and thousands of videos have that tag on it, right? So you can't
okay.
even. It's just it's funny, and it's funny to me because to me it was just this small thing I made up. But I'm glad it's got its own life. I'm glad it went beyond me, and I'm glad it does whatever it does for whoever it's helping.
Yes, I agree. I think, and I'm trying to think. Well, I know if I use it on Instagram, when you type in a hashtag on Instagram, it will give you the number of times or how many times it's been used and how many posts. And I forget the number, but it's a big number. The hashtag Grow Together on Instagram is like, I don't know, I forget how many, but it's hundreds, 40 or 50,000. I think people have used
Wow.
that tag. So.
And I heard it's even on the back of some award show T-shirt.
Yes, I have heard that rumor too. Uh, all right. So now we're going to ask a total random question. So I have a list
Sure.
of 50 questions. So just give me a number 1 through 50, and whatever number we land
Let's
on,
just
that's
go with the last one. Let's go with number 50.
50. All right. This is an interesting one. This is one about parenting. So what parent are you closest with? Your mom or your dad?
Well, my mom's been passed since I was 19. So she
Oh
died
wow.
early. She died in her 33 of cancer.
Oh
30,
wow.
no, 37 of, she had cancer and died, which was a weird age for me to pass because that was prevalent in my mind, right?
Oh sure.
Um, my dad is still alive. So obviously I'm close with my dad. But I wasn't one of those kids that liked one parent over the other, actually, over the other. I was just, they're my parents, you know? I don't think I ever had a favorite. Just love both my parents. I'm probably the odd, I'm probably the odd one that's not the mama's boy or what. I just, if I'm an odd person, right? Because I'm mostly independent, where it's just, I guess I just don't really attach like that, right? Even now, you know, you love your mom, you love your dad. I don't say I could pick one over the other, which one was my favorite. Even with all the years,
Right.
I mean,
Sure.
I grew up in a household where we didn't have any money, but my parents loved each other, and that was always front and center, right? They treated each other nice. They were really good to each other. They did their best with us, and I never preferred one over the other. They were my parents, and that was it for me.
Yeah. No. Similar experience for me. I'm the youngest of five, so um, parents, not a lot of money, but made the best of it, and worked through, good parents together, and me being the youngest, I would always get picked on, not picked on, but in a loving way by the
Right,
older siblings, because I was the baby, and I was treated different than the rest of them, so they thought I was my parents' favorite.
right. And by then, the parents just think, all right, he's the
Yeah,
last
right.
one. Let's get him through.
Yes,
You know, but
yeah,
by
yeah,
then they're not really parenting anymore. The kids can run themselves.
right. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I think that's where we probably get our independence from, right? Because for me being the youngest, yeah, my parents were done. They already went through it, with four others, so they were like, he'll figure it out.
Right, and also I guess it extends out because I mean I I'm pretty social. I talk to everybody. I'll hang out with everyone. But also, I'm not a very social guy. I'm happy just being at home relaxing and not talking to a damn soul. So either I'm good either way.
Yeah. No, I'm very similar too, where I'm like, I can go to the party or I can just stay home and yeah, read some books, read some comics, or just hang out, watch some TV. I don't need to be in a crowded room with a bunch of people.
I had that when I was younger. I'm good now.
Yeah,
Now
right. Yeah,
I'm old and settled.
been there, done that, right? All right, so you made it through all of the six questions. So thank you. But
Well,
why don't
thank
we,
you.
before we wrap up, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you have coming up, on your channel? I know you have, two weekly shows that you normally do, the hot seat and the 1011.
Right, and the 1011, the 1011 has actually been twice weekly for a little bit now. Just because I had a lot of people that wanted to be on it, but couldn't make Tuesday nights because it's just tough during the week. So that's where the Saturday
Show, right? Okay.
show started. But let's see, coming up, we have this. We have tomorrow night. We have Pocan Joe on the Saturday edition of the
Mm.
1011. And then we have officially unofficial on the Tuesday, the 1011. And then we have a bonus, the 1011 Thursday, instead of in the hot seat with Dope Comics, because that's when he could do it.
Oh, okay.
So I said, yeah, you know what? We'll just go 1011 week this week. So, and then, of course, next Tuesday, we have uh, Jean Malo on the 1011.
Oh, okay.
And then we're on the 6th, we're going to have Lee from Whack Comics on. So he's
Oh,
going to do
wow.
his little stint and be on the shows as well.
Get your seatbelt strapped in for that one.
Oh, it'll be fun. I love talking with Lee and Tyler. The awkwardness that they try to create. Doesn't bother me. I absolutely love it. Those two guys are great. And you don't understand Whack Comics until you go on Whack Comics, and then you have the best time with them. And then it's all good after that. Let's see, Lee. I thought I missed one.
I think one
John.
I think one of my favorite videos is you telling Tyler to go, screw off.
Oh yeah, that was and that was Whack Comics Brilliance, right? That wasn't my idea. That was Tyler's idea. Tyler messaged me. He goes, Gary, can you make a video saying these things and just trust me? Oh yeah, why not? I don't care what you do with it. So he gave me he told me what he wanted me to say. I said it to it. I said it and said it to Tyler. Like, have fun doing whatever you're doing with it, buddy.
That was great. Yeah, that was, when I saw that, I mean, it's one of those that I can just watch, over and over and over again.
You know what's funny about that one too is my son just found that yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he comes up to me with the question, Dad, what? There's a video of you on Whack Comics, and were you and this guy? I'm like, yeah, buddy, that's a joke. That him and I are friends. That's a funny video we made together. Oh, okay,
You want to know if you were really mad at him, right? Yeah,
right. I'm
that's
like, no,
great.
that dude's awesome. Tyler's great, and that's that's Whack Comics, buddy.
That's great. All right. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap up?
No, I'm good. I just want to thank the community for supporting my channel, supporting my shows, watching my content. Thank you guys so much. I'm over 1,300 subscribers, so thank you so much. I appreciate everyone that is subscribed to me. I appreciate everyone that watches my show and supports my guests and my co-hosts. And Brian, I want to thank you for asking me to be on the show and talk about myself for a little bit.
Well, I appreciate it. I was excited when you accepted. So I was like, because like I said, I always see you on the other side of it. So this was good for me too, so that I get to know you a little bit better. And two, if you don't know for some whatever reason, if you don't know who Gary is, links are down in the description to both his YouTube channel and his Instagram. So definitely go give him a follow if you don't know him. You won't be disappointed. Like I said, his interview shows are some of my favorites. In the hot seat and the 1011. And one of the other things I think about those shows, which makes those shows special, is, and you mentioned it, the rotating guests that you have, not the guests, but the co-host. Yes, because you never know. Digger Jim may ask a certain question. Rob Fatstacks, Nick, Marcus. They all kind of different personalities and will ask a different question. So that's always interesting to me when I'm watching as well. You have you're pretty constant in the things that you'll ask or the questions that you'll ask. But then the wild card is your co-host, and you never know. Depending on the show and the guest, you'll have somebody different. So that
Right.
makes it even more interesting as well.
And that's a big reason why I do it because I'm like, if it's just me doing an interview show, I always think, people are going to get bored of just hearing me ask questions every single time. But when you introduce other personalities into it, each of those personalities has a different way of thinking than you. They're going to think of something that you've never thought of. They're going to ask something that you wouldn't have thought of. And they're going to engage a different part of the audience than probably what you would engage.
Yeah, no. I had Picking and Punching on for the interview, and then he was on Jimmy's show, Small Town Collectibles channel for an interview, and Rod is a professional wrestler, and so Jimmy asked him. His final question was, give me your wrestling persona, and answer this question as your wrestling persona, which was I interviewed him and never even thought about it. And then, Jimmy did it and had that angle
Right.
and that question. And I was like, why didn't I think of that?
Right. And that's just how people's brains are
Yeah.
wired differently,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or different inspirations at different times. You never know. And no, I love it. And the shows are more fun for me too, having a co-host there.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I pre-record these shows, because it does, it's a lot of work to manage. So I want to pay attention to you. I want to be listening to your answers, so that maybe prompts another question for me. But managing it live with the chat, and then trying to highlight some of the chat and what the chat is asking or what they're talking about, it can be a lot of work. And so that's why I choose to pre-record these, so that I can really just focus on my guests. But yeah, the co-host is a good idea, because that can help you manage the show a little bit better as well.
Right, and sometimes I try to match up co-hosts with my guests that I know that my guests will be comfortable with because they've had experience with them.
Sure.
Like when and I know we're going long. I apologize.
That's
Um,
okay.
but when I had Magic Lasso Ryan on, first person I asked was Roger because Roger knows him and they have a good relationship. And I thought having Roger as a co-host really enhanced that show. Not only Roger's presence, one because Roger's always awesome, but two, Roger knows Ryan in a personal way, and when Ryan was on, and it creates a level of comfortability
Sure.
for your guests, right? And I don't know if you saw Ryan's The 1011, and I'm not saying this because it's my show, but I thought that was a really great show. Ryan was really personal. He was really open. He shared really personal things, and I thought it came out as probably one of my better 1011s, and that's because of Ryan and Roger.
Yeah, connection, right? And the
Right.
guest being comfortable. Yeah, no, that I think that's um, important. All right. So Gary B, go sub him up. Links are down in the description. Gary, thank you again for being on. I really appreciate it. It's great to get to know you a little bit better. And yeah, I will be on the lookout for. It sounds like you've got some great guests coming up. So definitely looking forward to listening and watching some of those guys.
That's right. I'll have you picking out books soon because I'm starting to schedule for November and I only got one person scheduled. So hopefully you have time in November to come on the 1011.
Okay, yeah. Let's we'll make that happen.
All right. Sounds great.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Gary.
Brian.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks again. And thanks to everybody who's catching this premiere and in the chat. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next show. Thanks.